and April. Jeff, can we do those two approvals together, or would you like those approvals separate?
You can do them together.
All right,
Yeah.
so I'll ask the board if everyone's had an opportunity to review the minutes from those meetings. And if everyone approves of them, if someone would like to make a motion to approve. All right. Gary has a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I have it.
All right, Tommy seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. All right, in new business. We need to remove from the table the zoning ordinance text amendment, an ordinance to amend the Webster County zoning ordinance, section 6.1-8 supplemental regulations of commercial utility grade wind energy conversion systems that was tabled on March 21st, 2023. Would someone like to make a motion to remove that from the table?
I can motion.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous vote, and that passes. We are back to discussion. All right. We have our public hearing of the zoning ordinance text amendment. An ordinance to amend the Webster County zoning ordinance, section 6-1-8 supplemental regulations, commercial utility grade wind energy conversion systems. Jeff, do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome to the public. This is a public hearing. This is an ordinance amendment to our zoning ordinance. We have a current ordinance in place. We were directed by the Board of Supervisors a few months ago to take a look at this ordinance, and with the primary focus on setbacks from dwelling units and environmental sensitive areas. So just to kind of update you where we're at, back on February 14th, I came to the Planning and Zoning Commission as staff to have the planning, to get some feedback from the Planning and Zoning Commission, whether or not they wanted to go ahead and tackle and take a look at this ordinance. And it was the consensus that they did. And so on March 21st, we held a public hearing on the ordinance amendment. We took public comment, and I'll get into the ordinance amendment here shortly. What came out of that meeting was the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that a joint workshop with the Board of Supervisors take place. And so I went back to the Board of Supervisors, and they informed me that they wanted this process to continue with the Planning and Zoning Commission and respectively bowed out so that, you know, like I said, the process will continue with you guys. By the end of the day, the Board of Supervisors will have 3 hearings, and they may be making a final decision. So on September 11th, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a workshop. It was well attended by the public, and we took more feedback on this ordinance amendment. And here we are today, scheduling the public hearing for official action or a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to move forward with to the Board of Supervisors. So just to go over the highlights of this ordinance, when it comes to property lines, we're requesting that the setback be increased to 1.1 times the tower height. When it comes to residential dwelling units, this is all discussions that I've had with the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's a 1/4 mile for participating residential dwelling owners and 1 mile for non-participating residential dwelling owners. Proposed right-of-ways are 1.1 times the tower height. That's been increased. And then based on a recommendation from our Conservation Board, they've requested that we have setbacks, 1 mile setbacks from Brushy Creek State Recreation Area, Kennedy Park, Lizard Creek Wildlife Management Area, Bob Hay Conservation Area, Miller Marsh, and the Boone Forks Wildlife Management Area, along with the Des Moines River, to protect our habitat and our environment. Wetland types, they remain the 600-foot requirement remains the same. We did make a proposed change here to other structures and cemeteries to increase that to 1.1 times the tower height. So this is staff's recommendation, after having discussions with Mid-American and Invenergy, in order to strike a balance amongst all parties and the understanding that the existing Lundgren Wind Farm in South County has operated with very few concerns or complaints. Staff recommends approval of the attached ordinance amendment with a single change to this ordinance that has been discussed over the past few meetings. That change is to reduce the proposed minimum setback requirements for non-participating residential dwelling units from 1 mile to 1,800 feet and from 1/4 mile to 1,000 feet for participating residential dwelling units. And that 1,000 feet is where the ordinance is right now. So with that, I'll turn that back to you, Chair. That's staff's recommendation. That's something for you guys to consider. You can come up with your own recommendation based on, public feedback, and all this will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors.
All right, thank you, Jeff. All right, folks, I do want to open this up for public comment. Tonight's meeting, I'd like to do this a little differently than our workshop. I would like you to come to the podium. Please state your name and address, and please make your comments. We have a lot of folks here tonight that may want to say something, and we want to move this along as quickly as we can. So please make comments quick and to the point if you could. So I will open that up for the public. Mr. Schmalberger, I know you wanted to speak, so please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like
Your
to
name,
thank
your name.
Steve Smallenberger. Where you live? And I live by Benson.
Thank you, Steve.
First of all, I'd like to thank Ann Meyer, state representative, for being here. She is very interested in things happening in her district. So thank you very much. This last comment I'd like to talk about somewhat. If this board is appointed by the supervisors, and the supervisors are elected by the public, they represent their constituents, which is the people who voted for them. We live in a republic. Power is for the people, and the representatives supposed to represent them. So this board being appointed by them should follow the same rules. I was going to ask if you made this decision based on your constituents, which would be the people in Webster County, who are the other parties that actually made this decision?
Yeah, it's a staff recommendation.
And
It's a recommend, it's not a final decision by no means.
didn't you just mention Mid-American?
Yes, I've consulted with, and I should consult with the energy companies to get their input, correct? Yes.
Okay, I was gonna ask also, how about, you said that the Lundgren farm had very few complaints. Have you ever been there?
Yes,
Have you stood within 1,000 feet of a wind turbine?
yes.
1/4 mile?
I've been within 1,000 feet of one.
Okay, have you listened to the sound that they make? Okay, how about, have you even talked to any people in that neighborhood? Have you interviewed anybody close to one?
No,
Okay,
no.
with that, I'd like to have Daphne at a later time here be recognized. She grew up in that area. She has visited the area, and they have sounds that were recorded right next to a turbine, well, within 1/4 mile, which is more than 1,000 feet. But at this time, if you would please, I'd like to introduce Tom Reveley. He is our attorney to represent citizens of Webster County. And this is Tom, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to have you make a few comments, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Steve.
You would approach the podium, state your name and where you live.
My name is Tom Reveley. I'm with the law firm of Whitfield and Eddy in Des Moines. And I live actually in Norwalk, but I practice in Des Moines. I was contacted to make a few comments tonight. My first interaction with wind turbines was about 10 to 12 years ago in Hancock County with Florida Light and Power. They were up in Hancock County. I've been involved in Kossuth with Line Energy. The people with Mid-America know me in Ida County, Adair County, and Madison County, and some other counties in southwest Iowa that we've had some issues with. I've looked at the documents, I've looked at some of the documents and you said the staff recommendation is to go from 1 mile down 1,800 feet. In all due respect, I don't think it's a staff recommendation, it's Mid-America's recommendation. I've heard Mid-America in many, I don't know how many Board of Supervisors meetings I've been, Board of Adjustment meetings, and Mid-America comes in and says, well, we can't do this project unless it's 1,800 square feet. We just can't do it. You know, and so it's always 1,800 feet. And Mid-America, the problem we have here is I think we're going to be presented petitions with hundreds of names on it, is the fact that these wind turbines, without question, interrupt the day-to-day activity of the people that live next or near the wind turbines. I have a family in Ida County that actually moved out of their house, and their house is vacant because they can't stand the noise and they can't stand the flickering from the turbine. I have another family in Ida County who various times during the year, they go down their basement and they put covers over the windows because they can't stand the flickering and shadowing on the first floor of their home. It's just not livable. Now, I've been involved in litigation with Mid-America in Madison County, and we're probably going to start in Adair. And it's just a situation where if the setbacks are not adequate, it can basically ruin the enjoyment of a home of the people that live in there. Now, I'm an environmentalist. You know, I did my tax return this last year and I listed my charitable contributions, and I contributed 33 environmental and animal rights groups. So I'm an eco person. You know, I'm not, you know, and I'm all for the environment, but you have to be careful. And I think that you have to be careful before you make any recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Because if you leave out certain things in your recommendation, then it just presents problems in the future. For instance, the setbacks, is it from the property line or is it from the foundation of the building? Now, if it's, you know, from the foundation of the building, a building could be, you know, somebody could erect their home quite a ways from the property line, and they could have a turbine not too far off their property line. Now, how about the noise? How about the noise and decibel level? Have you thought about that? My expert in Chicago, in fact, last week he was down in Union County, but we've set up noise measuring, systems in Ida County with the noise from the turbines, showing how noisy they are. Now, it's not every day, not 24/7, we understand that. But the noise is an issue. Have you thought about the decommissioning of these turbines? What's going to happen? Now, I looked at the, I looked at the, some documents that you've been presented by my clients. And there's a quote from Warren Buffett in there that said the reason we're in wind turbines is because of the tax advantages. What happens if they change the tax advantage and the tax credits? And these turbines all of a sudden aren't economical and they stop. How about the decommissioning? There are actually graveyards around the country where they're stockpiling these old blades. Now they're trying to make these blades recyclable. But I don't think they've reached that point yet. But how about the decommissioning? How about the bond that should be set up to cover all the costs? All these things I don't think are in your recommendation. But your recommendation is what everybody is concerned about, and that's the setbacks. But there's some other things just as important, and that decibel level is really, really important. Now, I don't know, I think Mid-America was supposed to give you an environmental impact statement. Have they given you one? I don't know. But have you seen one?
Why would we see one? We don't have a project.
Yeah,
We don't
Yeah.
have a project. In terms of the decommissioning plan, that's something that we do require, and that would be reviewed by our county attorney specifically for the best interest of Webster County.
Well, it's in the ordinance. I beg to differ with you. You can't punt that down the road. It's gotta be in the ordinance. It's
It's in
not,
the,
it's not something that the county attorney.
we don't have to have that in the ordinance. Could be,
Well,
it has to
okay.
go through the conditional use permit, and that could be a condition of approval that they provide a decommissioning plan. So that,
and that is addressed in the ordinance as it stands right now.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that the counties that have wind ordinances have decommissioning provisions in the ordinance.
Well,
So that's, you're
we
gonna
don't
be.
want to overregulate too much,
Well,
so.
I know you don't,
No,
because,
no.
because you're taking Mid-America's 1,800 recommendation, hook, line, and sinker. It's no compromise between 1 mile and 1,800 feet. Mid-America told you what they wanted, and that's what the recommendation is. And, again, the noise level, and how do you measure this? Whether it's 1,800 feet, 2,500 feet, whatever, how do you measure it? The lot line of, what is it, the lot line or foundation? What is it?
From the middle of the turbine itself.
Well, to the lot line or to the foundation, the non-participating owner's home,
Foundation.
okay, all right. And I think that's problematic. But, if a home is set back quite a ways from the lot line, you could have a turbine almost literally across the road. And that's what happened to one of my clients in Adair County. Because what basically Mid-America does, they first go to absentee landowners. The reason for it is the absentee landowners don't care. They're not going to meet their neighbors at Casey's every morning for coffee. Okay, and they're not going to have to look at them eyeball to eyeball. I've got a person in Adair County. She has 7 turbines right across the road from her, and the owner of the property lives in Hawaii. He doesn't care. And see, and that's another problem when you have to be careful of an ordinance like this. It's the people that have signed up. Majority of them, you check, they are absentee landowners. Now, they may not live as far as away from Hawaii, but they don't live in a house on that property with wind turbines. Now, I know you got a lot of people here, and it's, and you can see, I could talk all night. And I don't wanna wear out my welcome. But I do think you should, I think that, prudent thing is to table this again and to look at things like noise levels. And I beg to differ with you, the decommissioning issues and other issues that other counties have addressed, rather than pushing this through, because that's what Mid-America wants. They want to push this through. They've got what they want. 1,800 feet. Let's go, let's go, let's vote, let's get on with it. But you got to sit back and you got to relax, and you've got to say, okay, you've got hundreds of people here that are going to be affected by this, and let's do it right.
A lot of these negative impacts can be addressed as conditions of approval. You know, L10, L50, noise level readings, et cetera. I've been through this dance before. So we don't want to overregulate, but it's a valid concern about noise, and I get it without a doubt. I mean, nobody wants to live, no one has to tolerate that. So again, when we look at conditions of approval, we look at all those, what's going to negatively impact those people, you know, and make sure we adopt conditions.
Well,
Otherwise the permit would be subject to revocation. So that's very important. So, you know, to overload our ordinance with all kinds of requirements, we can do that, but it just gets to be overkill.
and that's what Mid-America says.
Yeah.
See, that's exactly what they're spieling.
Yeah.
And so,
And I've seen ordinances that get to the point where they're talking about what color the turbine can be.
that, I have
and
seen
those
that
kinds
too,
of
ma'am.
things. I mean, and they're very, very specific.
Yes, I've seen that.
And I don't think any of us here
Well, we
are,
don't want to be back
Yeah.
here amending our ordinance 6 months later because of something.
Yeah,
You know, I
something
mean,
like
that's
that.
just it, you know, if some other issues, so.
which is why it's conditional
Yeah,
use. So
exactly.
that we can go through everything like Jeff says and look at what the decibel levels and things like that are. But you know, I mean, I'm not discounting or taking any away from that because they are
No,
good points.
Exactly.
And those are things that, you know, that will be taken into consideration on a conditional use permit.
Okay, well, normally they're also put, maybe not as much detail, but in the ordinance, but you get my point. There are some other issues that have to be addressed.
Yes.
But this 1,800 feet, you know, when you have documented instances of vertigo, tendonitis, migraine, on and on and on and on, because of these turbines, you just gotta be careful what you authorize, how near these turbines can be from inhabited buildings. Because some people, like in Ida County, have lived there for years and years and years and years, and all of a sudden these turbines go up, and what they thought was a retirement home is gone. I have one situation where these people bought a lot and built a pond and planted trees and say, we're gonna build a house, you know, in retirement. And they're not doing anything, you know, they're just gonna sell it and move on. And so, there's just a lot to think about on this, especially with this 1,800 feet. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Anyone else? There's a lot of folks here. Please come up to the podium, name and where you live, and love to hear your comments.
Good evening. My name is Joe Crowley. I'm a representative from Invenergy out of the Chicago office. Thank you guys for holding the meeting and taking public comment. We appreciate the opportunity to give you our position on this and shed some light on some information that we've been able to, or some research that we've been able to conduct. I'd like to first point out that you guys are representatives for all your constituents in the county, and we have over 21,000 acres of people who signed up and want to be part of this project, who want their land, and that number is still growing actively. We appreciate you guys taking the time to reconsider your amendments, and we do feel as if 1,800 is doable. We still feel like that's taking out a lot of buildable acreage in the county, but we do understand that you guys need to find a delicate balance between representing the environmental needs of the area as well as the constituents who do want to participate in the wind project. And so thank you for doing that. We think a 1,600 foot would also be a little bit more buildable, but we understand that 18 could be the delicate balance that's struck between those two. Additionally, we looked into the conservation area setbacks, and with the specifics that you guys drew on the actual individual conservation areas, we appreciate those and understand that those are areas that are significant ecologically and environmentally, and understand that those are setbacks that we can adhere to and respect, because it's probably something that we would have done anyways. So we appreciate that. I think our main concerns in the proposed setbacks right now are the change from wetland classifications from, it currently reads 3 to 5, or right now it reads 3 to 5. You guys are considering moving it to 3 to 8. The wetland classification system referenced in that is in the ordinance, is outdated and unreliable. It appears the reference to that system may have come from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service publication dating back to the late 1950s. That's before the Safe Drinking Water Act and a lot of other materials that have come out from that organization. They now use a system called the Cowardin system that has been the de facto standard for mapping wetlands since the 1970s and was formally adopted by the national standard by the Federal Geographic Data Committee more than 25 years ago in 1996. Utilizing the outdated and unreliable numbered classification system, which is unfamiliar to the industry participants and regulators, will not be in the best interest of any stakeholder and will not provide reliable results or protections. Instead, we recommend the ordinance be amended to reflect the modern Cowardin system. We suggest the ordinance be amended to require 600-foot setbacks as currently proposed from lakes, river and wetlands, and forested wetlands under the Cowardin system. There's a lot of information from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife that actually defines those areas. The current system that you guys are using, the 1, 3 through 8, is antiquated and just really hard to understand. It's hard to enforce. And so we want to be able to set back and know what we're supposed to set back from. And so we really encourage you guys to take another look at that and consider updating your terminology and definitions of what wetlands you're really hoping to set back from. And I'd also like to point out that Invenergy goes beyond and above and beyond, the noise and flicker regulations that are set in other counties. We really observe, and we don't want to be a burden on people who aren't part of the project. All of those 21,000 acres plus are voluntary signups. We're not forcing anyone to do it, and we don't want to make life harder on anyone that doesn't want to be a part of our projects. And so we want to make sure that you guys understand, and speaking to the decommissioning issue, we go through rigorous decommissioning plans and transportation plans. We do hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of studies to ensure that these turbines are being placed in areas that are safe and effective. And we just want to make sure that people in this county know that we're doing this in a manner that has been tried and true in many other counties and has been successful in many other counties. We set back reasonable distance to make sure that noise and flicker are kept at a minimum and have minimal impact. We really appreciate your time and consideration during it, and we're happy to tell you guys and speak to this as much as you guys would like. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for listening to us.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Daphne Woolworth and I'm from Vincent, Iowa. And I grew up Callender Gallery area. And I know at this one meeting, you had mentioned that there were no complaints from that area. And so I and Mary Larson drove down there a couple weekends ago just to visit with people in that area. And the reaction we got was, well, no, there's no complaints now because it's already up. So why would we complain? But the people that we did talk to said they significantly complained before the project was completed. They had hired an attorney, they spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and they said nobody listened to them. So they had several concerns, but we did, if I can pull it up here, let you listen to this. Sound of this. And we were on the road and there was no wind that day and we shut the vehicle off, so bear with me. I can get my phone down. Do it again. All right. So it's your 1,800 foot. That's what you're hearing. All the time. So I'm just thinking of my grandchildren, if they hear that noise, they're like, where's the airplane? So they would be doing that all the time. And just, little babies, they're sensitive to that. So some of the other comments we heard were in regards to the decommissioning. What we were told is some of these companies, and you might know this better than anybody, will have a separate section for decommissioning. And when it comes time to decommission, they are bankrupt. And so then the burden falls on the landowner to get rid of these things. And by then they're long gone. So there's a lot of money there. The other thing is the landowner is liable for anything that happens to these windmills on their land because you have the insurance on them. So you're liable for whatever happens with them. It's also considered an asset. That easement is an asset. So if the companies go bankrupt, that easement's an asset. So if you own that land, that's a consideration as well. So I think versus rushing into that, like this gentleman said, maybe we need to look at a few more things, and long-term ramifications than just going with what Mid-America wants. And to this gentleman's point about the 25,000 acres, what we have found as well is a lot of the people in our area, in Newark Township, Badger Township, that are signing these easements, they don't live here. They don't. I've looked at the plat book, Nancy and I've looked at the plat book, we've called people, we've written people, they're living in Colorado, Nebraska, they won't be on their farms. So I think something to think about is if you sign an easement, you should live on that property, or you should farm it directly, or your grandkids should farm it, or your son should farm it. You shouldn't be able to live in another state and sign an easement that directly impacts the people that do live here. That's my thoughts. Thank you. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having this meeting. I'm Mary Clausen. I'm from Webster City. My land is from Brushy. When my husband was dying, he said, I'm moving you. I work in Webster City. I'm moving you, but I go out to the farm all the time. My son lives there. And when I was approached, I went to all the farmers by me because I'm a good neighbor. And I said, what do you think about windmills? And Bob Van Wees, my husband always told me to go talk to Jim Royster or Bob Van Dees, okay, so I did. And I went and talked to both of them. And Bob talked to me and he wrote me a letter to telling me that, yes, energy is good. I think of my grandfather when the electricity years ago was in Jewell, Iowa. So I've been in this area all my life. And people didn't want electricity. Now, what would we do without electricity? We have to think of the future and we have to think. I have went to meet with all my farmers. We have Brushy, we have 5 people lives in the house. I went and talked to every one of them because I'm a good neighbor. I'm not a bad neighbor. And talk to them first to see what they think. I have went to the windmills by Blairsburg and stayed there for half an hour looking to see how many birds are dead. I didn't see any, okay? I went and here, yes, we do have noise, but I was raised on a farm and we had windmills and we used water in windmills and that would make noise too. And if you didn't oil it good, it would make a lot of noise, Before I signed up, I did sign up, okay? My sister is a very important lady in California and Webster City, we have been hurt with fish things and electric cars and all this stuff. And I don't want to get hurt, okay, again. So the company that Energy is a very good company. My sister, who travels all over, said, yes, it was very good company. Another question before I signed up is I worry about the taxes. And I was worried about if somebody got hurt. The taxes, what it brings to Webster County is $1,850,000 if we have 47 windmills. I mean, I did my homework because you don't sign your name on paper to let somebody go on your land if you don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna get a windmill because my wind might not be good, okay? I mean, I can't say, well, I'm gonna get 6 windmills. hell, I probably won't get one, you know what I mean? But you gotta look at the future. And our energy, our government, our president, they think we need to go with the energy thing. One thing I do think, I think Midwest Energy, they need to do more than 2%. Now, we have a lot of energy engineers and they can probably figure out that we can get a little bit more. I mean, that it comes back to us, you know what I'm saying? I walked to see if there was birds. I just think that it would help our county. I pay taxes in this county, and I just think, in one acre, as a business person, 1 acre, you can't do as many corn. I even asked if we can help to decide so that we don't break up a field, because I don't want to have 10 acres that I can't rows that I can't do because my planter won't do. I mean, I sat down, I went with meetings with Jim Roysters, I went with meetings with, you can ask Holly, I probably call her maybe twice a week to say, what about this, what about that? Because I want to make sure we do it the best, okay? We want better for everybody, okay? So thank you for letting me talk. You have a hard decision to make, but I hope you make it the right way.
Thank you, Mary.
My name is Mary Larson. I live rural Vincent, and I was with Daphne, and we went down on a couple Saturdays ago and visited with the people, like we said. I also visited with people on the phone. One said that he had 7 wind turbines and a half a mile from his home, and it's a noisy whoosh, whoosh, whoosh all the time. And he said that a mile would be the right distance to have them away from people's homes. He said that a blade fell off, and what would happen at 1,800 feet and the wind was blowing if it was closer to, for the 1,800 feet instead of a mile. He said there was also part of a blade that fell off. And somebody also mentioned about during an ice storm, when the ice comes off and flicks the ice off, 1,800 feet is not very far from a person's home. I live on an acreage, like a lot of us do, out in our neighborhood, and this is not fair to us to have, that close to us when the people that want this in our area do not live on the land like we do. I treasure my countryside, waking up to the birds. I talked to another lady. She said all their songbirds went away. She said they broke the tile, and they're concerned about returning the soil back to the original if it was decommissioned. How many of you have a wind turbine around your home? Would you like it 1,800 feet from your home? Just think about it. It is way too close. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Liz Christensen. I live in rural Vincent. What is the purpose of having the ordinance say from a residential dwelling versus a property line? Why can't it be from our property line instead of our home?
They can say anything you want. I mean, when it comes right down to it, I mean, you would probably find that the property line is more restrictive, obviously than the home itself, so. Yeah.
That was gonna be one of my questions for you.
Yeah. And we can look at it from that perspective, but again, you're looking at tracts of land that are 40 acres. Lots of tracts.
Well, the reason for my question is because, for example, I brought this up last time, I only live on 2.7 acres. You put that thing 1,800 feet from my house, it's in my backyard. You move it out to my property line, it's a better compromise, but not exactly what I would want. Do you see what I'm getting at? And so I think that if we if we have to come to a compromise of some kind, irregardless of the distance, I think we need to look at the property lines of those who are not participating to give us a little bit more freedom for where we live. I moved back here from the San Diego and Port Orchard, Washington area because this is my roots. This is my home. This is where I enjoy being. And if I wanted to look at metal structures, I would have stayed in a big city. My other question is, I know wind energy has a lot of backing for it right now. What about looking to Story County? Has anyone looked at Story County in the city of Ames? Do you know what they're doing to supplement 40% of their electricity? No? They are burning trash and refuse from the entire Story County to supplement 40% of their electrical. That cleans up the landfill, it cleans up the environment, and it produces power. Now, there's no tax benefit for it yet, but don't you think Webster County Story County is the only one in Iowa and the only one in the nation? Don't you think we'd set a better example by looking at something like that to supplement our electrical? That way we're saying we're yes to clean energy, yes to the environment, yes to producing more power. And it seems like it's a little better way of doing it than erecting a metal structure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks, Ann Meyer, Fort Dodge. I don't live near the project. I just have a question and a comment. When you state you've had very few complaints or concerns about this, how many have you had?
I've been with the county almost 4 years, zero. No
That's
one,
zero
no one
complaints?
has called my office and complained about the sound of it, the feel of it, the odor of it, or whatever. So, yeah,
And no complaints about this project?
zero.
Zero, okay.
Nobody's, no one is, yeah.
Okay, because I am not involved in this project at all. This is obviously a very local project.
Mhm.
And I've received 5 complaints and concerns about it. And
Over how long of a span? I'm just curious.
2 weeks
2 weeks, okay.
That would be for this.
And are we talking
for
the,
this project.
For this
No,
project.
That's what I'm
The other
talking
one was done
about.
several years ago, what, 10 years ago.
I think is what Jeff was referring
Yeah,
to,
it
is
was
the
longer,
existing
not the
project.
new one.
Lundgren Farm down south.
I'm referring to the one that everyone is
Oh,
here for
yeah,
tonight.
that's not even a project. We don't have any plans. I haven't seen any.
So we
plans.
don't have any, none of you guys on the planning and zoning committee have received any
Oh, yeah.
concerns or complaints?
It was almost $10 to send out. We have a petition that's out there. We're well informed as a board.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've heard all of, you know, I will fully admit this is not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is health. I understand what we're saying about as far as, proximity to homes. People with proximity to, close proximity to wind turbines say they experience sleep disturbances, headaches, and concentration problems. That's one thing that's in a regular physically healthy person. But also, anyone on the autism spectrum, they're more affected by this, and anyone with a sensory disorder or a sensitivity disorder, those symptoms are definitely more exacerbated in those issues. So I don't know the population, I don't know, but I know that we have a huge population of autism in our state, and I think that that's very important when we're looking at what the people who are living in this project are talking about. So I just wanted to make that.
It is the county supervisors that make the final decision, and they are elected by the people. We're a board, we're appointed, so.
You're appointed by the supervisors, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
correct.
So,
And we're just discussing, doing research on what's out there, what's been successful, what's not. We don't make the decisions on where they go or.
I mean, by the end of the day, they may choose not to do anything with our current
Yeah.
ordinance.
Right.
Mhm.
They might just leave it alone, to
Okay,
be honest with you, and that's what the supervisors may do by the end of the day.
and so I'm assuming that that's what this meeting is for, is a gathering information to make that recommendation.
Yes, correct, yeah.
This is our third meeting or second?
Fourth
Okay.
meeting, yeah.
And we've done it legally too, haven't we, with advertising and stuff?
Yes.
We want input. We're not sitting on a board here in, you know, in a closed room. We need to hear.
Okay,
Well, I think, you know, but by the end of the day, if it does get adopted, we're making improvements to it, you know, we're not gonna make everyone happy, I don't think, you know, by any means, but you have to look at the other side of the coin here. They might not do anything and just say, okay, everything's operating fine, again, because Lundgren has operated
Yeah.
pretty decent, so.
and I can understand that being in
Yeah.
state government as well. I
Yeah.
mean, we hear both sides, and sometimes we come to compromises where neither side is happy, and generally that's the best. But I think it's definitely important to take everyone's
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
side, and
Without a doubt.
okay, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Evening, my name's Kenny Johnson. I live outside of Vincent, south of Thor, northeast corner of the county. A lot of great topics have been brought up here tonight that I was gonna bring up, but no sense of being redundant about it.
Thank
The only thing I really would like to, that I haven't heard yet, that's on my mind, is I look across this room, I would safely say the average age of the people in here is 50 and up. The ones that do not want these windmills close to their houses, their land, they're fighting for their kids, their grandkids and great grandkids. Because we all might be able to cut a fat hog in the now, and it's a great payment and things are good. But no one knows the future. No one knows if it's gonna fall on its face. If they all leave and walk away and here they all stand. That's my thing, just keep in the back of your minds of what, not for us, but for the ones that are coming up into the ground and the dwellings that have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Evening, my name is Sherry Hoover and I live in Duncombe. I am an owner of an acreage that if they would put one, I would take one. We put them up on my mom's place. She had 3 of them and one less than 1,000 feet away from me. There was noise, but it's no worse than me where I live listening to the interstate. And trust me, that can be wild. And I hear the race cars at night from Fort Dodge. You know, noise can be something that we have all the time. I guess my one question is, can you please tell us what the lines would be from Brushy Creek? You said it would go all the way to Duncombe, correct?
The Mercy Creek, man. Wait a minute. So this is Brushy Creek, and the way the proposed ordinance is adopted. And I'm sorry, I don't have this outlined, you know, it'd be 1 mile from there. It'd pretty much eliminate, keep in mind, you also have as proposed, a 1 mile setback from the Des Moines River. So really that whole area right through there that's shown on the map is pretty much off limits. Based on what this proposed ordinance reads.
Okay, right now I put up with all of the extra traffic, the speeders, the drunks and everything else that come from Brushy Creek.
Yeah.
And now you're gonna say that I can't put anything on my property? You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
I'm
No, I know what
just,
you're saying.
I mean, we already
Yeah,
have a lot of things that we put up with.
yeah.
You know, we've asked for control of all of the dirt. We get nothing. You know, I guess that's one of my concerns. I mean, I understand there is a state setback and if the state has already told us what we have to do, why do we want to mess with them? I guess that I just don't know. I just was asking because that That's a lot of ground, guys. Does that mean from here on out, you can't put a hog confinement, you can't improve? You know, I mean,
This is just for placement of wind turbines, setbacks for the wind
but
turbines,
once
yeah.
this starts, what's next?
Hog confinements, we have basically no, we don't, as a board here and really as the counties.
But I'm just
we don't have to
asking,
say on
I'm
that.
just asking, you know, if I decided to start some big business or something, it'd be a no-go because I live in that.
So the conservation board met, and
Right.
that was their recommendation, was to
Right.
keep it from a mile from some of our most sensitive environmental areas. And this was highlighted as one of their environmental areas. So, I mean, that's their recommendation. Now, the board of supervisors will consider that. They may go with it, they may
Right.
not, they may
Right.
reduce it.
I
We
just
don't know.
wasn't for sure, that,
So,
but that's a lot
yeah.
of ground. I mean,
It's a lot of.
if you
yeah,
look at that, that's huge,
Yeah,
you know? And that's not counting the other ground the other way that it impacts.
yeah.
Thank you.
So you look at Miller Marsh also, I mean, that's quite an area also that would be impacted, so,
Well,
yeah,
was there any setbacks from it before?
no,
But now you're putting that in. I get,
that's what's proposed.
I get
so,
putting for those in places like that, they didn't have any protection before.
Correct.
I understand that that probably needs it. You know, which does make sense. I'm just asking about the extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, anyone else? Have the gentleman approaching?
Good evening, Adam Jablonski, Mid-American Energy with multiple business locations in Fort Dodge and Webster County, and happy to be the one who keeps the lights on for you tonight in this room. Proud to be able to serve and partner with this community on service and multiple projects, successful projects already in the county. So just, I know we've provided written and some verbal comments in the past, just reiterating some of those points and adding to them, but just understanding some perspective too. So Mid-American has 3,400 operating turbines in Iowa alone already. We first built, our first product was built almost 20 years ago. And those were developed at setbacks of 1,000 to 1,600 feet, all 3,400 of those to date. So thankfully, you know, wind generation is the new technology we're trying to solve a bunch of problems for. It's been around, and I think the first project was built in the late 90s in Iowa. So it's been around about 25 years already in Iowa. So we have partnered with 4,000 Iowa landowners already for our 36 projects so far, and all have signed up voluntarily. It's been all voluntary easement. So, you know, when we suggested a range of 1,500 to 1,800 feet, that makes it hard on us. You know, that's at the top end of what we've developed in the past or greater than. It's higher than any other of the surrounding counties, but we think it's reasonable, you know, to balance, you know, those that don't want them and those that do. It'll make it difficult on us to develop the 1,800 feet. But it's still possible, and it's possible if people voluntarily participate. I always say this over and over at these hearings. I've been to multiple of these. If people don't want it, the majority of landowners don't want it, they won't sign up for it, it won't get built. I mean, we don't use eminent domain to site our wind turbines. It's all signed up voluntarily. But at 1,800 feet, it still allows those people who do want it, you know, some potential to realize those benefits. So I think that's just a simple fact. The majority that if they don't want it, it's not going to get built in the area, the majority of landowners. But if they do, it's a reasonable setback. It allows them to use this. And it, you know, if it's going back to the one mile I've seen written in there, it doesn't give them that ability. If there was one person in the middle of 4 square miles who didn't want to participate, everyone else did. 100% participation elsewhere. They could control that 4 square miles and what those people did on their property. So where would that control end? I think the lady up here kind of touched on my point I was trying to make, but it's kind of like what's next? You know, what else could they control that's a mile away on their property? So the reason we're here is we have the operating project in the county, a successful project, we think, but we've had landowners reach out to us, you know, and that's why we started outreach to more landowners in the area. That's how it started here. So we just want to protect, you know, their ability to use their property with reasonable setbacks. You know, we get that. And we also do much more than just, the simple setbacks that the counties implement there. We do other sound, shadow, environmental siting studies that further restricts that much greater. Could push turbines back even farther than 1,800 feet if it doesn't reach those limits. So there's more than we do than just what's up there to make sure we're a good neighbor in the county. We have people who work and live in this area, so we want to be good neighbors. So we're gonna, site our projects reasonably, and we hope you'll, protect the ability of those who want to site wind on their property to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Barb Martin. I live in Vincent, but my family farm is just outside of Vincent, so I'm here looking for the protection of that for years down the road. Just a quick question. If you think about what these wind turbines are going to do for Webster County, I would like to know what the first thing that comes to mind. Right now, a lot of these comments, it seems like money comes to mind. Yep, brings money to the county. Might bring money to your pocket. Might keep you farming somebody's farm that owns the wind turbine. Might not stop you from doing that. But money isn't our natural resource. The land is our natural resource in Webster County. And at the very first meeting that I attended, the Mid-American Energy person said, wind is free. So why are we so worried about free wind that everybody's getting paid and how much they're going to get paid and how it's going to affect the natural resource that we already have in this county that we need to keep? If wind is free, they can buy it somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We're going to be wrapping up public comments very quickly, so please come forward, make your comments quickly if you can.
My name is Dan Force. I live outside of Vincent. And I just want to comment on what Mid-American just mentioned about being good neighbors. And they contact all these people that don't live in the area. Those of us that have acreages never hear a word. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'm Merlin Barnes, former Worth County Supervisor, state legislator. I also worked for USDA 5.5 years in Washington, DC as a regional assistant chief with NRCS. First of all, let me reiterate what Joe said regarding the Fish and Wildlife Service. Part of the ordinance that we would really like you to look at that. I did have an opportunity to visit with a couple of the commissioners working for USDA for NRCS. Of course, USDA was given jurisdiction over agricultural wetlands in the 1985 Farm Bill. Those of you that farm would know that. So when you're dealing with another agency having jurisdiction with the delineations, it does become an issue, particularly if your distances get too large and you have a non-participating person that does not wish to disclose information. So I think you've been given that nugget in order to look at. I would actually like to address this, and I do some county consulting, county community relations for Invenergy. I'm new since March. Invenergy had a great project in Worth County called the Freeborn project that started out in southern Minnesota, ended up in northern Iowa and Worth County. And that county has been very positive for Worth County. Using tax increment financing, as your supervisors would know, it can be utilized to do good things for the county, roads and bridges, repaving. In Worth County, we actually looked at courthouse renovations, bike trails, a natural gas pipeline for an industrial park. Those are the kind of things that we looked at economically. But I want to tell a personal story. I'm the father of two. My daughter and son-in-law farm and started farming in 2016. My son and daughter-in-law started farming in 2019 when he and his wife came home from Nashville. He was doing the music gig thing down there and decided to come home and start farming. My father was fortunate enough to have 3 turbines on property that he owned. He passed away a year and a half. My sister received one of those turbines, and my son received one of those turbines on a 40 that they inherited, and my daughter received one of those turbines on a 40 that she inherited. My son last year, and this is dealing with particular Laura, your young daughter. I don't have my 6 grandchildren. My youngest is only 6 months. So you've got me beat, but thank you for your service, particularly tonight also. But I think what's important to note, with my son and daughter-in-law in particular, they're renting ground, wanted to buy some ground. The residual payments in that inheritance from that particular turbine total over the next 12 years, about $100,000. And this is an older turbine project, so the payments are not as lucrative as some of the proposals are now. My son and daughter utilized that $100,000 for sure turbine payment over the next 12 years in order to secure a USDA beginning farmer loan, and were successful in buying a 100-acre tract of ground last summer. They wouldn't have been able to do it without it. So when we are talking about the future of agriculture in Iowa, you know, they're not only going to be able to harvest corn and soybeans and cattle and things like that, they're actually harvesting the wind, and that was a positive outcome of that particular turbine contract. Don't forget that the general welfare of the citizens of Webster County also depends upon the financial welfare of government to operate, provide services like EMS, you know, fire departments, good roads, good bridges, and that those types of things are very, very beneficial to the community as a whole and Webster County as a whole. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Gentlemen?
Dearest life, living Badger, not some clown from another town. You know, I brought this up the last 4 meetings. How much of our county is gonna look like an industrial park? None of these people here that want them, live around them, live in their backyard, very few of them. Of the 21,000 acres they signed up, there's not 21,000 residents on those. Think about that. I'm a resident, I live here. I look on my backyard today and tonight, beautiful sunset. That's all gonna be screwed up by windows and stuff like that. My son does have autism, and I do have to deal with that. It does have a health effect on people. Let's take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, Elliot Meyer. I'm actually from Dallas County, but I work with the Iowa Land and Liberty Coalition, which is a state-based group of local citizens that support utility scale renewable energy development. And for us, a decision like this comes down to a property rights issue. These are voluntary projects, like have been mentioned before, and it should be a landowner's decision at the end of the day, whether they decide to sign up with that project. The 1,800-foot setback is certainly not amazing by the standards of other counties that we work with. But I think in this case, it is a compromise that I think is going to be very valuable, because at the same time, it is protecting landowners in Webster County while also encouraging investment into Webster County. So I would really recommend to go forward with that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Gary Dinklau from Vincent. You know, we're talking about all this money that they're gonna make. You know, when they come in, every road is gonna be destroyed. You're gonna bring in truckloads of sand so they can make corners to get to the site to set these windmills up. Then after they get done with that, then they'll come in and they'll remove what they can and take that somewhere. So all the roads within Webster County are gonna be destroyed. Another thing is people in Webster County, we've been a farming community forever. You know, we hear people talk about century farms. Well, my farm's gonna be a heritage farm. Do any of you guys know what that is? 150 years. 150 years, yes. In 13 years, my farm will be a heritage farm. So I know what my great-great-great-grandpa did. Do you know what your great-great-grandpa did? I do. So it's a big deal to see this come in and you know, destroy the area. You know, right now, you know, I put up a big machine shed. We lift the door up, we sit out there, watch the birds, listen to the noise, whatever, the planes going over. I did stop this weekend and stand in Stratford. I did stop by one of the turbines. When I was out by the road, we rolled down the window, we got out. We could hear the humming of the turbine. I couldn't hear the swish because on Saturday it was pretty windy. So I mean, all I could hear was the wind, but over the wind, I could hear the turbine. As we got closer, we drove down the road. As we got closer, you just hear it that much more over the wind. So to say that these aren't air pollution or noise pollution, I should say. Yeah, I think you need to take consideration, you know, your wetlands, your habitat. Are, you know, I think our setback should be the same as that. Why should Kennedy Park have more weight than me? You know, I think so the setback should be the same. I guess that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? All right.
Nancy Trollenberger, I live north of Vincent. I just think, we want to make sure that whatever you decide, we do this to the property lines, lot lines. We don't do it to a house. The example that, the lady gave, and I think you need to table this. You need more input. You don't have the restrictions that some counties have. There are a lot of things that residents care about that are not in the ordinance now, but I think you should table this and get more things into your ordinance for it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nancy. All right, folks, it's 7:08. Are we, anyone else, any final comments? So, no one else, anything else? All right, I will officially close public comments. It's 7:08. And we will start board discussion. Jeff, there's been a couple of points brought up tonight that I think need a little bit of weight. One of them is that property line issue.
Well, that's a common,
Property
remember,
line
that's a common line, remember, so you could have a participant and a non-participant, so. That's a touchy matter there, so I don't even know if we wanna go that route. I don't even know if there's an ordinance out there, or maybe Mid-American or Invenergy. Can comment on that, that actually go from property lines, you know.
I could also
So-
comment on that.
Yeah,
You don't have to
yeah, go
ask
ahead.
Mid-America.
Well, sure, go ahead.
No, but there are, it goes to a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty restrictive. I mean, you gotta strike that balance. I mean, here you're gonna zone them out of the county. You gotta be real careful. The county will be sued. I'm gonna tell you right now. I mean, yeah.
I'm just talking
No,
about,
I
I'm
know.
talking about that definition of lot line versus foundation.
Yeah, it's to the foundation.
Foundation of the house,
Out the
foundation
house.
of the barn, the
Yeah.
foundation of
Well,
the outbuilding
I know
where
we have
grandpa lives.
we have setbacks for, you know, accessory buildings and the principal structure. So yeah, those are from the structure itself.
The principal structure.
Well, you have accessory structure setbacks also.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're from the structure, so yeah, foundation.
Gary, what are your thoughts on that? Well, it's hard for me too, because if you think about some of these acreages and that, and you think about what a person might be doing on their property, if you have animals or if you have things like that, depending on the size of your acreage, if you're counting from foundation out to the center of the turbine, most of your property could be within that that times or that 100 span, yeah. I mean, personally, I'd like to see property line. But,
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
I mean,
Where,
that's,
where is the property line as far as the end of the grass or, you know, out to their end of their 80 acres or whatever they own? That's kind of.
Yeah.
Be fine.
yeah, that could vary tremendously.
And then that gets sticky with fence lines and.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to open that can of worms, to be honest with me, because that's just, it's,
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, to do your job, you have to.
that's, that's, you're not given, there's not a lot of flexibility there.
But my point is that if you don't open that can of worms, that makes that setback number far more important.
Right.
And I guess that's what I'm looking at, is without really defining that, you know, to sit there and look at a setback and look at the 1,500 or the 1,800 or the mile. I mean, yeah, if you're talking about somebody's property and coming out from the foundation of their house, and yet they've got areas where their kids are playing or their machine shed or things like that, and that's shortening that distance to where that
Everything,
turbine would
everything
be.
refers to the dwelling.
Yeah, the dwelling.
Yeah.
So if the board chose to go with a more increased setback, that's an argument for that.
In my mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I-
increase the 18, if it's gonna be the actual house dwelling or building or set aside instead of the property lines, increase the distance back from the actual dwelling or building.
And I guess, you know, again, folks, this is a recommendation we're sending to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors may see it differently, but, you know, Jeff has his recommendation. We as a board can come up with a recommendation that we will send to them. And I like to make sure that I can explain why, you know, why we feel that way. And the point that you folks brought up tonight, that to me is a pretty important point. Because, yeah, I mean, property line versus dwelling, I think of some of the acreages in the area where there's quite a bit of space there. You know, we have setbacks, we have setback requirements for where people put garages and things like that. So that's, you know, something to take into consideration, I guess, when we make a recommendation. I have a question on, and maybe the gentleman from Mid-American can answer for me. The ADLS system for lighting. Can you, do none of the Mid-American turbines have that?
No.
Okay.
Can I touch on that and then give you some context on your property line setback question?
Sure.
We have to do that, just factual stuff. The ADLS system is something we plan to install the first of, this is breaking news here, but, at one of our projects, it'll cover multiple projects in Iowa. We plan to install that this summer and test it. We definitely don't want, we want to understand the risks and how those operate before we would implement any wider than that, because that shuts the lights off
Yeah.
on the turbines. So we want to make sure it operates good, that when it sees an aircraft within 3 miles, it turns it back on, or there's a problem with it and it automatically back on. We want to, that's a big safety issue with aircraft. We want to 100% completely understand that before we would implement that elsewhere.
Okay.
So this summer, we plan to put in the first system, test it out for a year through a winter period is what we really want to see,
Okay.
ice and snow. And then after that, we'll determine a path forward with other projects, new and existing.
All right, and to the folks that are not sure what that is, it's the aircraft detection lighting system. And I had a conversation with Mike Salati, who is with Boone County Planning and Zoning. And he said that the Apex turbines that are going in down there, that they're actually putting that system in voluntarily.
Okay.
And what it does is it keeps those lights off unless there is an aircraft in the area, and then that's when they would come on. So I was just curious as to what Mid-American's thoughts were on
There's
that.
very few in operations across the United States, so it's kind of a unknown newer thing. There are some that exist, but we just want to make sure it's safe first. But as long as we deem it safe and we test it out over a course of a year, we're okay implementing those on new projects.
On new projects, or would you retrofit old
Well,
projects?
for sure, new projects
Okay.
first. Retrofitting is a little more difficult. If you plan it as part of the original project, it's a little more streamlined, easier, more economical type of thing.
Okay,
And then on the property line setback, I think, I'm just using 1,800 feet as an example here. I mean, if you applied that, you gotta keep in context on the acreages, that's probably fine. If it's 5 acres or something like that, you go to the property line. The thing, I don't think you're considering is what if somebody owns a quarter section? And if they own a quarter section and they don't participate, but everybody else wants to, that entire section's gone. Because you're going out 1,800 feet from there, you're coming in 600 feet from the road, section's done.
Okay.
So just, yeah. the
But you,
acreage versus-
but you
yeah.
understand then, you understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying as far as when you explain it that way,
Yep.
to increase the setback distance, that's one of the reasons why. And I'm, you
Yep.
know,
And there is some property line setbacks in there now already.
Yeah.
Just if you go to 1,800 feet, it wipes out a section. You have one non-participant with a quarter section.
Or you would
Big
potentially,
properties out
or you
there.
would potentially have to motivate that person to become a participant.
But that's,
Participant, right?
that's true. But again, if, I just think in political terms, if I had 75% participation, that's awesome for me, right? If I'm a politician. But, you know, the 25% said no, and they control everything. So if you have the majority, you know, who want it and one doesn't, that could eliminate those options.
Well, you could address that issue by, I'm saying, limit, if you got 20 acres or less. Or 15 acres or less, it goes from the lot line.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go quite that high, but I was talking about like 5 acres. or
Well,
10
yeah.
acres. Yeah, something.
Yeah,
along
but
those,
you-
Yeah.
So set a limit on if it's your dwelling and you have a 5 acre lot or
Again,
2.7.
this is hard to understand right now. We provided maps in the past that illustrate this awesome, you know, it really shows you the impacts of what they are. It's hard to say what the right acreage is without, you know, seeing how it really impacts other properties.
Scenarios out there.
Yeah, but yeah, on a smaller 5-ish, 10 acres, that would probably work from that. It's just the bigger properties it wouldn't.
did you provide, as long as you're at the podium,
Yeah.
I had asked Jeff about getting the map that was put together. We did that map at the last meeting at a mile, 1,500 and 1,800.
to us later today.
Yep. This morning we sent that all day.
I know, I've got it.
So this is, if you would explain this a little bit.
This one is, I think we provided 4 different distances that you requested, and
So it's quarter mile.
this is the shortest distance. So basically you pick the point, that red dot is a house where the resident setback would apply to, and basically draw a 1,800-foot radius circle around there, and that's where that's your starting point of not building. We did overlay the road setbacks that the county has already in the black hatching. But then there's, you know, a dozen other things we have to consider, you know, wetlands, pipelines, transmission lines, communication paths, and you're gonna have zigzags all over the sections where you can't build on top of what's there. And then non-participants obviously will limit that even further, and setbacks from non-participants, so.
Third of a mile.
This is a third of a mile.
Third of a mile. That's roughly 1,800 feet right there. Third of a mile, yeah.
So I'll ask that question that I asked previously. In the space there that's showing available, how many wind turbines can you put in there?
Prefacing this, that this is a very generous outlook, not considering the other dozen things we have to go through and consider. But, usually they have to be about a half mile apart, north and south, and you're almost probably about 1,500 feet apart, east and west. So just looking at this very roughly, maybe 5 in that section, maybe 3 towards the top and 2 towards the bottom. Rough guessing it right now, but that is probably highly unlikely that'll ever happen.
Okay.
Because someone may not participate, maybe pipelines, transmission lines, wetlands, microwave beam paths out there that you can't see, but you have to set back from. Potential bat habitat, all that stuff we have setbacks from.
And this is a half mile. Now compare that to what you just said. This is a different area.
Yeah, probably 2 or
What did that knock it down to, 2 and 3?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay, then let's do them. What's that gonna do?
That is gonna be 0.
Mhm.
That's gone.
But the one previous was half mile.
The one previous, yes, that's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, that assumes 100% participation other than that 1 acreage. So
Okay.
highly unlikely that we would be able to have that much buildable land with all the other stuff we. Yeah. Usually when you have perspective, some stuff like this, you have like little pockets here and there. You can cite turbines after you implement all the different setbacks, non-participants, setback, non-participants, all of that stuff. Probably, I don't know what it is, 15, 20 different setbacks and stuff we have to consider. And this shows 2 of those.
Okay. So in your example, again, I'm gonna ask, as long as you're there.
Not trying to hog the mic, but
No,
I'll answer
no.
any questions. as
You're the
you
one that's
want.
gonna answer the question. So in your example of having all these folks that are participating, and then you've got the one person within this section that isn't the farmer, that owns the couple acres, did you approach that person?
We are in very early stages of no, but we will in all of our projects. It's something we've done for the past 5 or 6 years. We will maybe longer than that, dating back to maybe 2015-ish. We started this practice of approaching all the neighbors and offering a neighbor agreement. Our newer ones, basically, they get to choose basically how far the turbine is from their property. The closer they allow it, the more compensation they'll get being part of the project. So they get, in our latest version of that, they get some kind of decision making based on their, how close they want to allow it. Some of them want it as close as possible. Some landowners want, we've had people approach us and make them sign an acknowledgement that says, so we're all on the same page. They want it as close to the house because they're the landowner too around there.
Sure.
So they can pack as many wind turbines on the property as they can and get, more of an annual payment from that. So
And that's fine.
It varies all over the opinions, obviously.
Yeah,
Not tonight.
I'm concerned about the person that has just a couple acres and they've
Yep.
moved out to the country and they, because they want to live out in the country. And they don't have the say of the large landowner who a lot of times doesn't live around here. Is an out-of-state investor that you've approached. I want to know what can happen for that person with the small acreage.
So just another fact to consider in your statement there. I think Iowa State did a study a few years ago and determined 50% of the land owned in Iowa is owned by absentee landowners. So it's just the fact of the matter, and not allowing those people to decide what they do on their property, I don't think is necessarily fair. I understand the acreage point, and that's where we go out and we always abide by county setbacks, if not greater. Mid-American has our own siting standards that will, apply. If the county setbacks are lower than that, then we'll, comply with our sound and shadow requirements to make sure that's sited back far enough for industry standards. But we do approach them and offer them because they, that acreage owner can participate in the project. They can't put a turbine on the 5 acres or whatever is there. So we know they can't participate that way, but we do offer that neighbor agreement. And then we'll offer to pay them based on the number of turbines within typically a half mile of their house. And then, again, in our newer ones, you kind of have some flexibility as to the payments you want to receive, how close you want to allow them to your property, that type of thing.
Okay.
That's what Mid-American does. I'm not speaking for anybody else.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's kind of answered a couple of my questions because I've heard that kind of didn't happen in the southern part of the county, that there were people that were not approached. That's,
my understanding
It's a newer practice, that's not. It is. I mean, that's not something they did when they developed wind farms, 7, 8+ years ago. It's just not something they did. Anybody did.
And those are the kinds of things that make difference in what we decide to do with setbacks.
Yep, and we learn from that stuff, and that's why we change things. That's why we increase our own internal standards and that type of thing. Yep.
Okay. All right.
And I know I've asked this before, but can you address again how much of that energy is staying local?
I can never tell you exactly because I can't follow an electron.
Right.
it goes onto a larger grid. So on the really windy days, just simple stuff, low wind days, it'll stay closer, you know, because the wind produces less. Really windy days where all the wind generation is producing across the state, the farther it travels away. We're part of MISO, a large grid system. You know, the United States is just interconnected across the grid, so it could travel far. And that's something we've done to benefit our customers and keep our customers' rates low. You know, hopefully most of the people in here are taking advantage of our low rates. You know, it's 9th lowest in the nation, 30% below the national average, and we've largely been able to do that because of our wind bill. We're able to take advantage of selling, you know, just like a farmer would sell their corn outside of Webster County. You know, we're gonna sell our excess generation outside Webster County as well. So we're able to sell that on that wholesale grid market, take advantage of those sales to keep our customers' rates low. That's a different way of answering your question, but I can't really tell you exactly. It travels around the grid, but it's used where it's needed first.
Gotcha. Because one question that I have is, I've had a conversation before with Mid-American and I said, okay, I'm noticing a different price on my bill. And they said, well, that's because we've had to outsource some energy, bring some energy back in. So, I'm just curious about.
Yeah, I'm not the rates person, so I can't speak exactly to that. There's different parts of your rate. There's like your base rate, and I think we've adjusted that maybe 2 times in the last 20 or more years, which is very rare in our industry. Our in-state competitor will do it every 2 to 3 years, adjust that base rate. And then there's some, what they call riders. And they basically go up and down based on like actual costs we incur, market costs, you know, we incur, but our base rate hasn't changed for several years. I think before that it was 1998 or something like that, our base rate changed. So very, very infrequent rate increases, which is very rare in our industry. Go for it.
How long, I know you said that this project, you guys haven't, this is off in the future. How far off in the future? Do you have any idea of this something that is in your 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 6-month plan?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, we just started this 3 months ago, something like that, just started talking to people. And we haven't even taken out like an interconnection position yet, and that's a 2-year study. So I think it's 3+ years away. It takes a while to develop, first of all, you know, make sure all the landowners are on board with where you're siting facilities, good county permitting, and they go through that. We talk about interconnecting into that grid. You have to go through almost a 2-year study process before you get those results to know that you can interconnect into the transmission lines. So for us, 3+ years.
And then another question somebody had. I know Lundgren's been there since the late 90s. Where is there any plan to expand that or they told me like Simmons 2.3 to up those to the 2.5, which is same size but produces 300 kilowatts more per turbine.
Yeah, so that project's not a late 90s one. That was it's probably like 8 or 9 years old, something like that. We don't have plans right now. I would say that's something we usually explore when they get 10+ years old, is called repowering. We've done that on 1,200 wind turbines across Iowa already. And it's a way to basically utilize that existing turbine, new components up there, put longer blades up there, capture more energy with that existing infrastructure in place. So I think that's something we would consider over the next few years, but nothing planned right now. No.
An ADLS system on them.
It's something we're doing that.
I mean, I hope
we're doing that for a reason. It's an additional cost to us.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, those aren't cheap systems.
Yeah.
But we realize, you know, we're trying to be good neighbors. We're making the investment. We're testing it out. If it looks like it's going to work, we're going to consider it for new and operating wind farms for sure. That's why we're doing it. Yeah, we just want to make sure it's 100% safe. That's it. We don't want to put anybody in danger with that.
Sure. And that's understandable. I wouldn't want to see anybody in danger too. I just know that, like I said, the zoning administrator in Boone said that was something this other company was doing voluntarily. So obviously they're tested and, approve the technology, so,
The vendors will tell you they work. Just
Okay.
want to test it, yeah.
all right. Anyone else have any questions for this gentleman? All right, thank you. Jeff, I have a couple questions for you. So the comments that were made about the wetlands area. I mean, didn't we talk with, didn't you have a conversation with, Matt Cosgrove about not breaking it all down into holes again?
We can go back and research, I think, we'll, keep what we have on book to make sure it's consistent with whatever the new language is and how they describe these wetland types, so I'll have to dig in there and do some more research.
Okay,
Obviously, we want to protect our wetlands or more valuable, more significant wetlands, and that's what this current ordinance does, so I'll go back in and take a look at that and provide some language that's consistent with that, that's current and up to date, so,
okay,
yeah, if they feel it's outdated, so.
okay. And just to answer some questions, in part of the packet here, that we received prior, the Madison, is it the Madison County Maxburg project for their decommissioning plan? A lot of the information that was in that decommissioning plan is what you would discuss when the conditional permit is put in place, correct?
Yeah, that's a legal document, that would be reviewed by our county attorney. And they would look out for the best interest of our county, make sure that it's decommissioned correctly.
Okay,
So, yeah,
when that's done, I want to think, I'm trying to remember, Gary, do you remember when we were talking about the solar farm, didn't we ask for a bond on that?
we had a decommissioning plan.
For the decommissioning plan?
We did, oh, yes. So
You should
decommissioning.
ask for a bond. I was involved in that, Madison County ordinance.
Okay,
And then that's the reason I'm saying that
Yeah.
you should ask for a bond. But just, but we're talking about decommissioning, it should be in the ordinance, and I disagree with you.
And
But that's the way it is.
a bond is the best way to go. He's correct on that, without a doubt, but, I left that up to our county attorney. That's a legal document, review it.
okay. I think we put that in the solar farm.
I'd have to go back. I know what the
And I'm wondering
decommissioning plan's there and, yeah,
if
it's
we
been
could
reviewed.
add
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we can add whatever you want in here. If you want to require a bond, we can touch on the decommissioning plan in here and put language that a bond is required. I agree, it's the best way to handle these types of situations.
What's anybody else think?
I mean, I think it should be included.
I agree. Have they already, if they've already done it for the solar?
Right.
If you've already done it for the solar field, is it some?
I would say half the projects anymore require as long as you give us some flexibility of what it is, it's acceptable to the counties and kind of financial security. In this case, generally, that's acceptable to the county. And the county attorney could determine what's acceptable at that time.
Okay.
And speaking from Mid-American, we get acceptance written ordinances also for being a rate regulated utility in Iowa. With the financial wherewithal, like the project owners that are like single, started an LLC and didn't have any financial wherewithal. You'd want some kind of security in place. Mid-American has a lot of assets are regulated by the state, so it's just an additional cost that we'd have to pass on to our customers. Honestly, if we pay for that, we can do it, but.
I think,
Compared.
it's
Not
important.
something anybody want to pay.
It's extremely-
It's not necessary. Yeah.
That's extremely important. In my opinion is that they should pay for it, they're.
Well, I guess I'm thinking of consistency across the ordinances, and I don't know if Allison can
I'm looking at it
pull
right
that
now.
up to see. I just seem to remember that we did require bond on the solar farm for a decommissioning plan.
Yeah, and I don't remember that one, but if it was a condition, I think you've mentioned a couple times, you can probably implement any kind of conditions you want at the time. But yeah, you can write it in there as well in the ordinance.
Okay,
I'm just saying it may have been just a condition to that permit approval, and not something in the ordinance.
I left that all up to the county attorney,
okay.
take a look at it. I'd have to go back and research that, to be honest with you.
Would you rather have county attorney come up with language on that?
For the ordinance, this
Yeah.
ordinance, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we can put something here about financial security, without a doubt, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That takes care of that question. Anyone else?
Are you going to consider maybe a compromise regarding the lot line for acreages, 10 acres or less, or whatever that amount is?
I think that's better than saying the section line or field lines. To go to the dwelling and maybe do it based on that than to say. Diane can take the whole area out if there's no house on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would be more open to something like that than the 1,800 feet from the dwelling. I'm uncomfortable with 1,800 feet from the dwelling, the dwelling. I don't feel comfortable, as somebody who's supposed to, represent people that, live out in the country. I would be uncomfortable with a wind turbine 1,800 feet from my house.
Yeah, I mean,
10 acres or less is probably fine, lots of feedback.
That or just do every dwelling, do a 25-acre radius around every dwelling, and then they gotta be 1,800 feet away from that. Who says 10 acres? Why are you saying 10 acres? You're not making decisions.
I'm just providing my feedback as the, you might want to catch. Other people are commenting without being asked.
Folks, this is board discussion time now. Jeff, what are your thoughts on doing some sort of boundary around a dwelling?
That's your decision. That's your recommendation, what you want to bring forward. So, I can go either way, we're trying to provide protection. So you're gonna get it one way or the other. So, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. Again, in my opinion, it's striking that balance. We don't want to zone these guys out.
No.
Or anybody, we want to have them to make sure by the end of the day, with all these obstacles and variables that are out there, that they still have the ability to do a project and their hands aren't tied. So.
I think, I've talked to a couple county supervisors in a couple different counties, and they too are rewriting their setbacks. And, they're looking at some similar numbers to what the original one that we talked about was presented. So, I don't think that we are out of line in what we're discussing or anything like that, and saying more than 1,800 feet, because I think a lot of counties are gonna follow suit.
When I spoke with the Boone County Planning and Zoning Administrator, I basically called to ask him, you guys changed your setbacks, what prompted it? And he said it was the public. And, and times change, things change, and as things change, our ordinances, all of our ordinances need to be looked at and updated, that type of thing. And this lot line thing, the reason that this is kind of sticking with me is that, like you said, it's hard to think about that house and then the lot line. Fortunately, my husband and I live on a little 10 acres plot. And when I think about the lot line versus, where our house is and our foundation, it's, that would be a big difference. So I don't know what you guys think would be a better definition for that.
Our acreage is taxed on a legal description as far as size, like if you have an acreage in an 80-acre field, would that house and like 3 acres be taxed differently, or would it be the whole 40?
Mine is separate, so.
Mine's separate too. It's the house.
The
is
house
one,
and then the
field
land.
is-
Yeah.
Okay. that's
Yeah.
all.
The house has a few
Yeah, whether
acres
you
with
wanna
it,
follow-
and then
Whether you
Yeah.
want to follow something like that, type thing. Description.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
To do it that way. I'm thinking of other acreages in my area, and I'm trying to think if that lot line is separate from the field. And even in my dad's place, the lot lines for where his house are separate from the pasture or the fields.
Yeah.
So lot lines of an acreage from there.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sorry, that's.
No,
I
it's
don't
your
like the
recommendation. No,
definition.
yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I would say from the lot line of the acreage. As opposed to, and maybe, does that mean we need to, because like I said, on mine, and I can't speak for everybody, the land is looked at separate than the acreage.
Mine is too. I pay for my house on 3 acres and then the field behind me, is something else.
Well, okay, yeah, that's a good point, Gary, because the taxation would be different on them.
Yeah.
Right. They wouldn't, the acreage wouldn't be taxed at the same rate as.
Right.
Our field. Yeah. So if we were to put that language in, Jeff, then we're looking at what is our setback number from that line? No, I'm just-
Yeah, I know,
I'm
you have
just-
all kinds of, I mean,
I know.
yeah, there's all kinds of different scenarios on that, so
That's-
it's like, I mean, that's whatever you feel would be comfortable.
I'm
So,
just-
I mean, obviously, it's from that acreage, you know, the lot line. Well, keep in mind that right now, that the tower has to be 1.1 times the height, so you're 500 feet already from there at a minimum, maybe 600. So, whether it's a quarter mile, half mile, a mile, whatever, you know, you guys. You know, we saw some of the maps and, you know, right behind you, what a mile does, a half mile does, a third of a mile or whatever, so.
I'm just making sure as a board that everybody's okay with going from that acreage, from the acreage lot line out. Okay.
I like that.
Okay, so now the question is, what is that distance?
Allison, can we see the remounts again?
Yes. So this was the quarter mile, I believe.
Mhm.
Well, that'll get bigger, will it?
Maybe a little
Yeah.
bigger.
Yeah, it'll get bigger because they, did it where the red dot is. So.
So that would be a quarter mile from that,
From,
all the way.
from,
The property line.
from the property right
From the
there, yeah.
property line, yeah.
And then this is the third. So this is pretty comparable to the 1800. And then this is the half. And then this is the mile. And again, as I do just want to show, these were requested at what the dwelling would be. So there are, I mean, they added the road right away in there too, but there's other factors that they mentioned too that would add to this. Yeah.
I know, that's what I'm sitting here doing too, like,
A quarter's 13.20, a half is 26.40.
that's 2040.
A third of a mile is 1800.
There's a mile is
About 1800.
And that's what this one is right now, this is about 18, this is 1800, well, 30
Well,
miles, so.
1760.
Yeah, it's
Roughly,
close
yeah.
enough, roughly.
Yeah,
So
roughly.
that'd be a little bit bigger.
It's gonna get.
It's good, yeah, it's gonna get
a
bigger.
little bigger.
So I was looking at some of those, I like the Boone County is 2,500 feet.
Yeah, I like that too.
And that's expanding on us and then. So it's gonna go out just a little bit farther.
Mhm.
From
I
the,
like what Boone County has.
from the dwelling itself, or
From
from,
the condo lines you guys, we talked about.
oh, okay.
It's gonna be a little
The acreage-
bigger.
the acreage line, okay.
Yeah, that's supposed to happen. So it's like that square there. That'd be the.
So it's 140 feet difference.
Yeah, just a little.
So if you go to the lot line, you probably make up
Right.
100 feet or whatever. I mean,
Yeah, I was looking at
if
the
you
other
walk
one,
it on.
they're like 2,400, 2,500. And it's still not counting them out to be able to build.
Right. Agreed. Yeah,
And it's a little less than half a mile.
I think in my mind, that is a compromise. Between, as long as we're going from the acreage line and then
Yeah.
we do that half mile.
Yeah. The
What we
acreage,
say is not, it's gonna go on.
Right.
You're just saying.
Saying as a recommendation.
I mean, an acreage line to me is a protection of that person's property. Right. You know, and they have the right to
Every
that
part of their
protection.
property.
Yeah, exactly, every part of their property, not just their foundation. So are we saying,
I like 2,500. I mean, that's my,
right,
I'm gonna get with that.
yeah. I don't like the 1,800. I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I had to look it up, 1,800 is too small for me.
Yeah.
It could change. I thought that was the quarter one.
So that's how we want to word that in there. From the property line, from an acreage property line.
Yeah. It sounds like what you're referring to is the Boone County ordinance, more or less.
Yeah, I kind of looked. I looked
Yeah,
through
so I mean, again, this has to go to the supervisor, so, you know, I can make these changes to the ordinance. And then run it through our county attorney and but base them on the setbacks from the acreage itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then going out. Well, as you mentioned, 2,500 feet. And that, you know, provides further protection, so as opposed to taking it from the dwelling itself, so. Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, it just makes sense to me that protecting the person's acreage, what they're paying property taxes on, that should be a no-brainer, and then this buffer zone around should be outside of that.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
all right. So that's what we're gonna go with. I'm gonna write that down here.
So do we still wanna go with a mile from all
Yes.
rivers and stuff? Okay.
I don't know how's everybody else.
We need to put anything in there about knowing wetlands, not knowing what I mean.
No,
How do you
no,
want to deal with those?
so I'm gonna go back and research that, and make sure, yeah,
I think
this
we
year.
find out which one, I think that's a good idea to find out which one works, and then we find out what we have work, stick with it, and if they say, no, that one doesn't work, then we find the one that they suggest, and we map it.
Oh, no, yeah,
You know.
yeah, that's, we're trying to keep it consistent with what we have now. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm gonna assume everybody else is, or the board, everybody's okay with, the other things that we've asked for as far as the EMS.
Emergency action plan, yeah.
Making sure that there is an emergency. And I spoke with someone from Green County who said that they have an entire book of, you know, action plan for their, you know,
EMS, yeah.
for their volunteer fire departments and things like that, that was provided to them. So I don't think asking that
No.
is a bad thing.
No.
And then the protection for the repair of private tile lines. Right now, the ordinance says that they need to repair public tile lines, but we're gonna ask for public and private tile lines.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we miss any changes on that, Jeff?
Nope, I've got them all.
All right. So what we'll need tonight, right?
You need a motion on that.
Yeah. So what we'll need tonight is for someone to make a motion to approve those changes. And I don't know, Jeff, if you'd like to list those all off for us, if someone makes a motion.
So hold on, can I make it back to my notes here? Sorry.
So to make a motion to.
Yeah, I have one quick thing here. I have petitions of over 400 signatures in opposition to this project. And each one of you, I have a copy of all the signed petitions.
We have it in here.
No, those were the first 100 that we gave you at that other meeting. Now we have over 400 signatures from the county and surrounding area.
Okay.
Yeah, but we want you, these people are opposed to turbines. It's
Okay.
not their, it has nothing to do with setbacks. They're opposed to them entirely.
Okay.
But we
And-
want you to have these.
And we'll, you know, gladly take them, but, you know, and I respect everyone's opinions on this, but I think we've kind of gotten a little clouded in what we're doing. We're not opposing a wind turbine farm. We're not for a wind turbine farm. What we're doing is we're trying to, make changes to our ordinance that's already in existence. We're trying to make changes to it that gives the county residents a few more protections. We're protecting our environmental areas, and changes of setbacks. This is not a vote for a wind farm or against a wind farm. We as a board will not be doing anything like that. What I recommend is if you have that sort of a stance, definitely talk to your supervisor. You know, like I said, our board is not, our board is not about for or against. We respectfully enjoyed hearing all your comments, and, you know, you guys said things tonight that I hadn't given thought to. And this is after 4 meetings. So, you know, the public comments are greatly appreciated. But again, our vote tonight is on sending an amended ordinance to the Board of Supervisors with a few more protections than we already have on the books. If we do absolutely nothing tonight, we still have a wind turbine ordinance in Webster County. Okay, so like Jeff has said, the supervisors asked us to look at it and said, what do you think we need to change? And we are making some changes to it. And a lot of that is because of public comment. So that's kind of why we're here. Again, it's not a for or against a certain project. So
Well, the residents wanted you to know.
thank you.
That's why we
Yes,
wanted
thank
to
you.
get from you.
Thank you very much. So Jeff, do you have a?
Okay, so. Yeah, once you guys make the motion, staff will go back, research the wetland types to make sure they're consistent, with the classifications, that are out there currently. They're gonna be, the classifications will be consistent with what the current ordinance reads, so to speak. The second thing is, to include language in here about the requirement for the decommissioning plan, that financial security and or a bond be required. So I will contact the county attorney to see what type of language what suits best for that. And then, last but not least is to provide protection, and provide a new revised setback requirement from the lot acreage line. That would be 2,500 feet. A minimum of 2,500 feet, which is roughly 1/2 mile. So what you're gonna find out in a lot of cases is that the home's gonna be more than 1/2 mile, maybe, who knows how far, at a minimum, so.
And that's for non-participants, right?
That's,
Or is that for everybody?
that's for everybody, that's my understanding, so.
Yeah, we wanna do it, or
I'm fine with doing that for non-participants.
It's non-participants, just non-participants,
non-participants,
Non-participants, yeah.
non-participating,
Participants.
have on there 1,000 for participating.
Yeah,
okay,
and if they're,
okay,
yeah.
yeah,
He's
okay,
got a quarter, well, this one has a 1/4 mile for participating, it says
1,300.
13, yeah,
okay.
but you can do it that way. If they're participating.
They're participating,
They
it's-
wouldn't
And they
back-
can waive, if they're participating, they can waive it anyway.
Right.
they can go down to 1,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
So-
I got that.
Mr. Johnson, how would you define acreage?
That's, that, yeah,
The taxable, wouldn't it be the area that's taxed as the acreage? Is that how you're defining it?
we'll research that. That's where that homestead is on, so to speak, so.
Yeah.
It's a good comment.
Would you make that an occupied homestead?
I think if there's a house there, it qualifies whether it's occupied or not. I mean, it has the ability to be rehabbed. I mean, unless it's not.
That's what I asked.
Yeah. So,
Because of that.
It's got raccoons.
Well, the fact that we encourage folks to do that, to rehabilitate some of those properties. Okay. That's a lot of information to make an emotion. And I want to make sure we get it right.
yeah,
So
we're good.
would anyone like to?
I will make the motion.
All right. All right, Tyler's making the motion. Do Do we have a second on the motion?
I will second.
And the motion is to, Jeff, do you want to read off?
To amend the current language of the proposed ordinance to provide a definition for acreage. The second point would be to take a look at the wetlands to make sure that those types are reading correctly to the current standards. The third would be to include a decommissioning plan, which includes some type of financial security to make sure that the turbines or the infrastructure is removed accordingly without any burden on the taxpayers. And then in terms of setbacks, to amend the setbacks for non-participating to protect the non-participating property owner. Those setbacks should be a minimum of 2,500 feet from their property line. And then if you are participating, the setback would remain the same for 1,000 feet from the dwelling minimum. Yep.
And the EMS instructions and private tile line repair.
Yep, that's in there already. Yeah.
All right, that is our motion. I will do a roll call vote. Tommy Smith.
In favor.
You're for. Laura Kelly. For. Tyler Lane.
Four.
Tony Coleman.
Four.
Gary Nelson.
I have a conflict of interest, so I would prefer not to vote.
Thank you. And Margot Knippel, I am voting for. All right, folks. That is the motion that will go to the Board of Supervisors. Jeff will have that all prepared. The Board of Supervisors will probably have 3 different readings on that. And again, please take these comments to the Board of Supervisors because they are the final say. They can take our amendment and make any changes that they feel, but I appreciate all of your comments and that's definitely been helpful.
Stay tuned. At the earliest, this could go to the Board of Supervisors is May 9th. It may go just a little bit later, but I'll know more by the end of the week. We'll get that scheduled by the end of the week for sure.
All right.
If not tomorrow, so.
Okay.
Yep.
So board, do I need a motion for adjournment?
I'll move.
All right, do I have a second? Second. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you very much. Meeting is closed. Thank you.